What's up, everybody? It's Izzy, and I want to expand on the topic that I did yesterday. Now, I got a lot of pushback on that one, both good and bad, and I'm sure people are expecting me to kind of clarify some of the points that I made in this video, but really what I'm going to do is double down. I consider success a moral obligation, not just something that you should aspire to because you want to experience self-actualization or because you're really into self-help and self-development. And I'm going to tell you a few stories and give a few personal experiences as to why my moral compass has aligned in that direction. So the first story that I want to tell you is about a 4-year-old boy who arrived in the United States in New York City because his family won a lottery ticket from Puerto Rico to be able to legally immigrate. Now, this boy lived with his mother and 10 or 11 other children in their home. They lived off of welfare. He was often beaten and had his lunch money stolen, so he'd go days at a time without eating. He had different fathers, stepfathers in and out of the home. He experienced watching them ruthlessly beat his mother and at times rape his sisters. And over the years, in order to protect himself, he became heavily involved with gangs. And of course, he learned to fight so that he could eat and not starve. Really simple stuff. Now, one of the interesting things about this story is that it gets turned around. Obviously it does, otherwise I wouldn't be telling you it. So, by the age of 13, 14, even really 12, this individual, this boy, had already been involved in very serious gang-related activities, violent acts, things of that nature. And when things really began to change is when a preacher from upstate New York decided that he was going to make it his life's mission to go into the hood, and this is really the hood, in the 1950s, okay? The New York housing projects when they were at their worst, Brooklyn. So, this preacher gets spit on, he has things thrown at him, his message is rejected time and time again. Nobody listens until they do start to listen. And people go to his meetings, he ends up being able to rent out a convention hall and get more and more of these people to listen to what he has to say, these young at-risk people. So this boy, again, very against the idea at first, slowly warms up to it and decides that he is going to convert to Christianity. And in order to help him get out of this environment and to make that a real thing, he agrees with this preacher to head to upstate New York and work at his church. Now, what ends up happening is that on the way to pick him up, to take him upstate to that church, the driver gets lost and he can't find him. So the boy sits on the curb for 4, 5, 6 hours, waiting until dark with his bags packed, excited, and they never come. They could never find where he was. Less than a week later, somebody in his gang was beaten severely and given life-threatening injuries. They responded, they retaliated, and a young man died as a result. So this boy that I'm talking about and many members of his gang were tried and convicted, and this particular person that I'm referencing was sent to jail for accomplice to murder. Now, that would be a pretty bleak end to the story if that's what happened there, but if that's where it ended anyway. But what ended up happening is that these people didn't give up. Even then, they told him, what their mistake was, and they still kept reaching out. And by the time he had served his sentence, he was once again converted to Christianity. Now again, I don't know what happened while he was in prison. All I know is that this particular person had nightmares for the rest of their life. When he got out with absolutely nothing to his name, no money whatsoever, and a criminal record to boot, over time he became a traveling minister, traveling preacher, spreading his gospel to not only the entire contiguous United States, all of them, literally every single one, but all over the entire world. In Africa and the Philippines, just to name a few, eventually reaching audiences of 10, 20, 30,000 people. And in fact, there was a book written about his life and the story of the preacher who went and helped him and so many of these other kids in these neighborhoods was turned into a movie as well. And in the end, this person completely turned their life around. They had absolutely nothing. They came from nothing. Absolutely nothing. I can't really say it any more than that. I don't know how many of you know somebody that started out with less than that and eventually was able to pull themselves up to a middle class lifestyle. Now, the second story that I want to tell, and I promise I'll come back to the whole point here, is about a young girl who grew up in a deeply, deeply religious commune. And I'm talking about the kind where there's little to no contact with the outside world. You're not allowed to listen to certain kinds of music. You're not allowed to dance. There's rituals being performed, some strange things of that nature. She was not allowed to live with her parents. She lived in a dormitory with all of the other children. So over time, she began to see some, let's say, the weirdness of this and wanted to escape the situation as soon as she could. So when she was 18 and she was accepted into university, she ended up being the fastest graduate in the history of that university, graduating at just over 19 years of age, completing a double major in that time, all while working a job to pay for all of that herself. In fact, she graduated so quickly that they completely changed the rules at that university and no longer even allow you to take that sort of a course load. And for any of you who have completed a single major, let alone a double major, I don't know if you're try fathoming completing a double major in just over 1 year. And that's what this individual did. Now, this girl would go on to become one of the first 300 employees at Microsoft. If it wasn't for a period of time where she left the company to travel around the world, spreading her religious beliefs, she would at this point in time literally be worth $1 billion. Another example of somebody who came from absolutely zero in terms of what we would consider, success in the modern world to a very high standing in society and a great person with great accomplishments to their name. Now, these aren't just random stories, these are the stories of my parents. And so when I consider success to be a moral obligation, I'm pointing and looking at what these people have sacrificed for me to be here. And when I think about that, to me, it's a spit in the face of my parents and what they've sacrificed. For me to be lazy, to spend hours a day on social media, to binge watch Netflix, to do these types of activities that I know a lot of you are butthurt about me calling out as unproductive, and in many ways, and depending on what your situation is, I think completely wrong. And look, the story behind your ancestry may be completely different. It may be a completely different thing. But I guarantee that if you go far back enough, whether it's your parents, your grandparents, your great-grandparents, maybe you have to go even further back than that, but somebody somewhere worked incredibly hard just to give you the opportunity to live in the best time in the history of history. You have access to the internet, unlimited access to knowledge, to acquire new skill sets, to reach out across the globe and talk to a person who you never would have met in your entire life, no matter what you did 30 or 40 years ago. You live in the best imaginable time, unless you can imagine the future, right? But this is the best time to be alive. And this was the sacrifice of the people that came before you and made this possible for you, is what you are now standing on. You're standing on the shoulders of giants, so to speak. And so it's really up to you. What do you want to become? I mean, what do you want to do with that gift? And for me, seeing what my parents started with and what they were able to provide for me, I would just consider it disgusting and immoral for me to achieve anything less than my full potential in life. And again, you may look at this a completely different way, and that's fine. Maybe it doesn't work for you to consider the past the way that it works for me. So maybe you should consider the present, okay? And the future. Surely, even if there's people in your past that you don't respect enough to care about the sacrifices that they've made for you to potentially have the life that you want to live, or maybe you believe in honoring that sacrifice in a different way, what about the fact that one day you're going to have children, you're going to have a spouse, if you don't already have these things, you're going to have friends that get sick, people get cancer. I've watched multiple members of my family die from cancer, up close. And there's nothing you can do about it. especially if you don't have resources. And I'm sure a lot of people are tempted to just let insurance handle that, but but if you can look yourself in the mirror and tell yourself that you'd be fine with that, but you'd be fine with not having the ability to do everything in your power to change that course, then I don't know what to tell you, because me and you were made from a different cloth. I came out the womb like this. The people that I love and respect, I would do anything for them. And for me to have to face the possibility, there's so many possibilities. Maybe looking my son or my daughter in the eyes and saying, well, yeah, you might have got into Harvard, but we can't pay for it. But you know what? It's cool though, because I had a sick work-life balance in my 20s. I got all the Netflix that I want. I got the Insta-hose. It was great. And look, when I think about that, when I think about being on my deathbed, and this is something that I encourage all of you to do as well, because just contemplating mortality, not only of yourself, but of other people that you love, is something that almost nobody does, because it's so morbid, but yet it's so powerful at the same time, because it can really act as a guiding light for the way that you should actually behave in your day-to-day life. And when I'm on my deathbed, I know for a fact that I am not going to sit there and say, man, well, you know what? I really wish I didn't work quite so hard in my 20s and 30s, so that in my 40s I could go to every single sporting event that my children had, go to every single recital, attend every single play, take them on the best vacations all around the world, send them to camps to learn from their favorite athletes, musicians, whatever that they're into. I'm never going to regret that and say, you know what, it would have been way better if I just watched way more porn, if I made sure that I finished Breaking Bad in 10 days. That's not going to be me. It's not going to be me. I'm not going to be put in that position. I'm not going to be put in the position to look a loved one in the eyes and know that I'm not going to be able to do anything about their situation, because I chose, in my opinion, selfish things instead. And look, I'm not telling you to never do anything fun in your entire life. That's why I started out the last video by saying, what do you want out of life? Some people are so immensely talented and gifted that they really just don't need to work that hard to achieve great success. I mean, athletes are sometimes like this. They're so talented that they don't need to work that hard anymore. Or maybe they worked so hard from the time that they were 5 to 20, putting in so many hours that the talent now is there. There's only so much more skill building they can do. And from there, they're just going to be amazing athletes until their physical abilities start to degrade. Or maybe you're just so smart. You're the top graduate out of MIT, and you can create formulas to create money through arbitrage situations in markets all over the world from the access of just your computer. Maybe you're somebody like that. Maybe you're 30 or 40 years old and you're already where you want to be in life. You have the family that you want, the job that you want, the situation that you want, and you know how many hours per day that it takes you to maintain that lifestyle. And if so, I'm not talking to you. I'm not fucking talking to you. So don't get butthurt. People that I'm talking to are college age kids. People that are not where they want to be in life. And for these people, when you sit there and act like they should be approaching this with moderation and balance, it's such fucking bullshit. And you're sending the wrong message to yourself and to these people, especially if you're one of these people that doesn't have what they want yet. Like, why do you think that it's impossible to work hard? I don't understand this. There's so many examples to the contrary. People say there's only so much deep intellectual work that you can do. Okay, what about lawyers, investment bankers? There's so many professions that require intellectual thought where people are working 80, 90, 100-hour weeks. And again, I'm not saying you should do that for the rest of your life, but is it the worst thing to work 80, 90, 100-hour weeks for 5 to 6 years so that you can be financially free for the rest of your life? In my opinion, no. But again, to me, success is not just this large goal, and especially financial success. It's not just this pie in the sky vision that I have for myself one day. I consider it a moral obligation because of the gift that was given to me by my predecessors. And I will not disrespect and dishonor them by living like a piece of shit. And that's my own behavioral standard. So if you live that way, I'm not judging you for behaving that way. I just know that it's out of character with me. It may be perfectly in line with your character. And again, I'm not saying that my character is better or anything of that nature. I'm just saying it makes me feel gross. It might not be that way for you, and if so, cool. Live your life how you want to live it. What's your goal? But the people that I'm really speaking to in this video are not living up to their own standards, and that's the people that I want to reach. You don't listen to the rest of the people who are seeking moderation and balance when your life is completely out of balance with what you want. Because in order to get that equation turned around, to balance it, you're going to have to take some unbalanced actions and be unbalanced in your behavior, in your economics, in your work ethic. And that's what it takes. And why do people say otherwise? It's such horseshit. When you come to this country with nothing, okay, or you start from nothing, and many people are starting from nothing, and that's what you guys don't understand. Those of you that are already successful people, you might have forgotten, or you just never had to deal with it, or you never saw somebody deal with it, or you never learned about somebody deal with it. I don't know. But why are you telling these people that they should work less hard and that it's fine? You know, it's fine to spend a couple hours a day on media. No, it's not. Not for them. Maybe for you. Okay? Maybe for your situation. You're already where you want to be. You have a system in place. Great. I'm honestly super proud of you. Really, from the bottom of my heart, I'm so glad that you've achieved what you want in life. Like, I hope that everybody can get there. I really do. But for those of you that are not in alignment with the life that you want to be living, do not fucking listen to people preaching moderation and balance. You have to work. There's so many stories of people working 2 jobs to save up enough money to buy their first real estate property. And then from there, they can start snowballing their way to financial success. There's a million different paths that you can take. Somebody starting up a side hustle on top of their corporate job. And eventually that side hustle growing to be larger than what they do for the corporation. There's so many stories and they all involve work. And it's not going to be for the rest of your life. I'm not saying for the rest of your life that you never have fun again. But for a certain period of time, whether you want to be Mr. Olympia, whether you want to become the greatest NBA player of all time, if the goal is big enough, it takes complete and total dedication and sacrifice and focus on that one specific thing. It takes alignment of your philosophy, of your emotions, and your behaviors to get there. And if any one of those things are out of whack, if you're listening to the wrong people about this, if you're not trusting your own instincts about what is right and wrong in your own behavior, you will not get there. And what I want to instill is a sense of urgency, because every day that goes by, that you don't start walking down this path, taking the extreme steps necessary to get to a goal that may seem so far out of reach that you can hardly imagine ever getting there, decreases the chances that you will ever get there. And this is true in every single field. If you're not a professional athlete, by the time you're 25 and you've been wanting to be a professional athlete your entire life, every year that passes, your chances go down and down and down. Every year that you get older and you want to achieve incredible levels of financial success, your chances go down and down and down, because you have kids, you have a spouse, you have a mortgage, you have all these things. These things add up to make it harder, not easier, with the passage of time. So what I want to conclude this video with is just a very simple message. Evaluate what you believe in. Think about the people that you love, either in the past, the present, or the future. What do you want to be able to provide to these people? And if your answer is something that you cannot currently provide due to your own level of limited success at this point in time, I strongly consider you to reevaluate every single aspect of your life and start behaving in such a way that you can eventually get on a path that gets you where you want to go. Stop looking at this as an option and look at it as your moral obligation.